Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Crosby Kemper, the director of the Kansas City Public Library, and it's great to have you all here to look at, to celebrate, to help accomplish the vision of a downtown arts campus. But before I turn this over, I do want to tell you that I believe that the most important thing we can do in the city is to bring the conservatory downtown. That's the most important thing we can do right now. Well, actually, as I said to Peter Whitty earlier, it's actually the second most important thing we can do. I'll tell you the most important thing we do. I was interviewed by the Crossroads Current for last week's issue, and I think I will read to you my answers. They asked me about the Crossroads growth, and I said, you know, that was wonderful. It's organic, unlike some of the tax subsidized. Wait a minute, I promised Ann Holliday I wouldn't say anything about TIF. Especially in front of, as I'm introducing Mike, but and the fact that the city's defunding the library in the school district, but I won't talk about that, I promise. So what I do want to say is they asked me, Todd Wiener asked me what was the most important thing we could do downtown, and right before I said the second most important thing was to bring the conservatory downtown, I said Kansas City needs something that isn't just keeping up with the Joneses, but is in keeping with the Crossroads. I would have 18 artists, 9 local and 9 international, design and build an 18-hole miniature golf course that snaked its way from the Crossroads across the loop into downtown. With sufficient imagination and scale, it would be a worldwide destination. And I will say this, I want you to spend that $80 million to bring Peter downtown and establish a conservatory, but I'll build my golf course for 50. And the man who can make that happen, the man who is almost our mayor and who's been involved in almost every important civic activity since he and I were 3 years old together, Mike Burke, will conduct our program.
Thank you. The joy of not being mayor is you get to work with the mayor on the most exciting things that are happening in Kansas City. And I'm very pleased the way our city is responding to being the highest speed download fiber city in the country. But I'm equally pleased to serve as the co-chair of the Mayor's Task Force for the Arts, which will be gearing up here shortly. I do want to acknowledge, we have a number of our steering committee, but I do want to acknowledge my co-chairs, Sean Kelly, Jay Tomlinson, Pat Jordan, who are here tonight, and certainly Harlan Brownlee, who's helping us out on this very important effort. I especially want to thank tonight the Kansas City Public Library, Crosby Kemper, and the wonderful staff at Kansas City Public Library for putting together not just this program, but some of the most wonderful, challenging, timely, and innovative programs in our city, and thank you very much. Thank also our sponsors tonight, Art in the Loop. Art in the Loop is a 501c3 that has done a wonderful job of providing public art in the downtown Kansas City area. Thank you for co-sponsoring this. And Downtown Council. And Downtown Council, again, is one of those wonderful organizations that has taken leadership roles in getting things done in Kansas City. And Bill Dietrich is here tonight. I want to thank you for sponsoring this. I also want to shamelessly plug the Downtown Council Annual Luncheon, which has a theme this year of, believe it or not, a vision for a downtown arts campus. But that will be December 14th at the Convention Center. I'm sure Bill will sell you tickets after the meeting tonight. I was reading an article just this weekend on the New American City, and it was about what's happening in New York, where New York is offering $100 million in 10 acres of prime land on Roosevelt Island to a university to develop a tech center. what we see happening in major American cities is absolutely phenomenal. Back in the last few centuries, the thought of universities was we need to be out of the cities and in the rural areas that are conducive to deep thought. What we are learning now is that we need creativity, we need density in our urban areas, and that's where the new ideas in the United States are coming from. Not only in the arts area, but certainly in the tech area. And we're very blessed in Kansas City to have both. I just want to think a second about the stars and the planets aligning for Kansas City. We mentioned already the Google announcement will be the fastest download city in the country and a leader internationally. The mayor announced today the summit on the New America Cities that will bring national experts here to Kansas City to discuss urban planning and showcase what we're doing. We've opened our beautiful, beautiful Kauffman Center in Kansas City that's provided a huge boost. This Friday night, we'll have 50,000 people down for First Friday. We have 200 tech firms in the vicinity of downtown and Crossroads and River Market. The mayor's going to announce next week a new initiative called UMKC to attract even more innovative firms to our downtown area. So what a great time to talk about a new urban campus. And I want to introduce all three of our presenters this evening. They bring wonderful energy to this topic. First of all, Peter Whitting, who is the Dean of the Conservatory of Music and Dance at the University of Missouri, Kansas City, has served since 2008, and has really taken leadership in this town. And with his help, the Chamber announced one of their Big Five initiatives, which is the Downtown Arts Campus. Our next speaker is somebody who's brought a lot of charm and leadership to the Kansas City Art Institute, Jacqueline Chandra, who comes here by way of France and served with the American Institute for American Universities and director of the X Center and Aix-en-Provence, and has taught undergraduate and graduate courses in a variety of art topics. And we have to have one outsider tonight. That outsider is somebody I spent the day with, Jerry Allen. Jerry Allen has been selected as our consultant to the Mayor's Task Force on the Arts. He has a history that I can't begin to read. He has consulted for cities around the country and has helped, among others, the city of Dallas establish their cultural program within the city, and I think is going to be a huge help in Kansas City in helping us plot our course in the future. The format tonight is our three speakers, and I'll ask them they're all mic'd up and wired up, to come up and sit down, and they each have a PowerPoint, take about 10 minutes, and then we will open it up to question and answers. With that, Peter, you're on first.
It's great to be with you, and it's a very unique moment in our history here in Kansas City. And when the world is spinning as quickly as it is, it takes a little while for me to get centered about what it is that I do. Well, I work for these two dancers, Mark Geringer and Asha Singh. I work for Paseo High School graduate and conservatory percussionist, Ryan Lee. I work for pianist Tate Addis and cellist Wei Shen. There's another cellist in this photo. And I work for Philip Laszewski, who starts this story, or at least this evening's story, with a brief stint in New York City, and I'd like to share that with you.
He asked me to play a piece by Chang Yi and said there's a possibility we're going to take this to New York. It was huge because I've never actually played New York before. I got to collaborate with Jim Snell and Nick Petrella. It was a great experience to work with faculty.
It was a night that Philip Laszewski won't soon forget. standing on stage at New York's Poisson Rouge in the company of fellow students from the UMKC Conservatory, and a who's who of its illustrious faculty, including Pulitzer Prize-winning composer Joe Lone and his wife Chen Yi, electronic music pioneer James Moberly, Paul Rudy, and renowned tenor Vincent Cole.
We were committed to taking music from Kansas City to New York City. About 30 civic leaders and arts leaders came with us and had an experience in New York City that was really terrific.
A performance like this can heighten a school's visibility, but what most people won't see are the preparations that make it possible. In a sense, the conservatory teaches 15,000 music and dance lessons a year. As its dean, Peter Whitty compares it to work done in the kitchen to prepare a great meal for the dining room.
And so we are familiar with this recent New York City story, but there's of course another New York City story, a West Side story, but it's not this one. It's this one. This is President Eisenhower in 1959 putting a shovel in the ground in a slum in the Upper West Side of New York, the very place where West Side Story was filmed. In 2 generations, it became the wealthiest residential and commercial district in New York City. And note this, 10 performing arts companies and 2 schools, the Juilliard School and the School for American Ballet, combined now for an economic impact in downtown New York of $1.7 billion annually in 2 generations. Right? This is our story. This is our moment. This is Kansas City. $6 billion invested in Kansas City since 2000. $1.57 billion invested in arts and cultural facilities. And the question civic leaders are asking at each turn is how do we activate and sustain $6 billion of investment in the heartland? How do we ensure that our city will thrive in the future, that it attracts millennials, a generation larger than the retiring baby boomers? Well, if we hearken back to 2005, Benno Schmidt and Jim Duderstadt, the president emeritus of the University of Michigan, gave us an answer. The answer is the arts. So this is, of course, from a Time to Get It Right report that we commissioned in order to bring focus to the role of higher education here in Kansas City. This was a quote that I read when I was in Atlanta, and I said, there's something magical happening in Kansas City. Right? This is in 2005. They gave UMKC their marching orders, did Mr. Duderstadt and Mr. Schmidt, and that was this: focus on your strengths. Our historic strengths in the visual and performing arts at UMKC, and our commitment to urban education. This again is a focal point for us. And so while these things were happening, we of course see $1.57 billion of investment in the visual and performing arts here in Kansas City. And these folks all come together around a branding initiative called America's Creative Crossroads, positioning the arts at the center of our identity because they're at the center of our city. America's Creative Crossroads is driven by creativity and a thriving national hub for arts and culture, right? And of course, Joe Long, the person that you saw in the video, provides proof of concept. In 2011, he wins the Pulitzer Prize for an opera he wrote here in Kansas City called Madam Whitesnake. He's the first Chinese American to win the Pulitzer Prize. And in Beijing and Shanghai, his photos adorned buses, billboards, and banners. It was a remarkable accomplishment, and it's one I hope this room is very proud of. So while our, thank you. So here's the deal. Our faculty and our students are exquisite. Our facilities are not. These are a few remarks from the National Association of Schools of Music. I will not bore you with the history of arts accreditation in America, but suffice it to say that we have been accredited by NASM since 1933. Every 10 years they come and check under the hood, and here's what they told us. They affirmed for us the following. These are not the things that we want to read about the flagship performing arts school in Missouri, but they are facts. They are truth. We just do not have enough space. The space we have is lovely. It was made for 300 people, and we have 537 today, right? So we have a real challenge there, right? So this is the context that helped provide the idea of a Big Five idea of an arts campus for Kansas City, right? It's this context, a burgeoning downtown renaissance, a city hungry for 18 to 35-year-olds, one seeking density and a revitalized core, one that is clearly all in on the arts, right? This is how this campus conversation came about. And without a question, the center of gravity in the performing arts, I would offer in the city and in the heartland, has shifted to the Kaufman Center, to Bolander, and to Crossroads. We know this every day. It's a new day in Kansas City. Right? And so when you put all of these things together, our daily challenge with our students, with a renaissance the likes of which we may never see again in our lifetimes, we start to see an opportunity. So this was the pitch, right? This was the idea. What if a downtown cultural campus was part of the Big Five? What if this, and this is key, that the thing that we seek to create complements rather than competes with the Bolander Center and the Kaufman Center, right? It's part and parcel, it's hand in glove. It's kitchen to the dining room, right? That hand in glove notion is really important. We would bring 618 to 35-year-olds to downtown Kansas City, right? And it aligns certainly with our mission. This was the idea. And so we asked a couple of people who know things about this. On our trip, while Philip was rehearsing at Le Poisson Rouge, we were speaking with Joseph Polisi, who's the gentleman on the right side of this slide. For the last 28 years, he's been president of the Juilliard School. Right? He knows a little something about this fixture. And we said, so what do you think? And he said, well, this is an opportunity to enliven the downtown area. And it's fascinating because you put the people who are the future of the arts right in the center of the district. Very powerful piece. So we thought, well, let's talk about that some more. And so we're really thankful that Joseph will be with us in December to help us as part of the Downtown Council's annual meeting. Joseph will actually make some time to speak with us a little bit about the synergies that happen between Juilliard and all the resident arts organizations in Lincoln Center. But let's hear, again, a little bit about what Philip thinks is possible in this future.
In its first year, Ellsberg Hall has hosted groups from the conservatory playing everything from the Carmina Burana to the Gates Barbecue Suite. For students and faculty, the idea of a spacious new home just down the street from such an amazing facility is hard to resist.
It's one of the coolest venues I've ever been in. It's beautiful, the acoustics are wonderful. Having played there, you want to contribute to the greatness of the place. If it's our conservatory, it's closer to that building, you know, then we have linked everything.
We've linked everything. That's why I like working for Philip Laszewski. Thank you very much.
Before I begin to talk about the Arts Campus downtown, I'd like to kind of clarify who we really are, the Kansas City Art Institute. As I'm sure many of you may know, the Kansas City Art Institute is the oldest arts organization in Kansas City and the only nonprofit private college of art and design in the state of Missouri. It started in 1800s as a small sketch club of about 15 individuals who were interested in studying works of art and eventually became a 4-year degree-granting institution of higher education with a current enrollment of over 800 students. This is an image, probably not of the 1800s, but certainly early on when there were very, very few students at the Kansas City Art Institute. We offer a Bachelor of Fine Arts in 13 different disciplines, as well as community programs. And this lists some of the disciplines that we have, in addition to others. So not only do we offer courses for our bachelor's program, we also have children and adult courses through our CASTLE program, Community Arts and Service Learning, and CPS, our Continuing Professional Studies program. We are honored to have had Walt Disney, Robert Rauschenberg as students, and Thomas Hart Benton as a professor. We are also proud that KCAI can take some credit for the development of the Crossroad Arts District, since it was one of our professors, Jim Leedy, who retired, now retired, who founded the area. He was the first to buy old buildings and to renovate them into artist studios. This was truly an organic urban redevelopment initiative that transformed the Kansas City landscape and gave rise to the strong arts and culture district as we know it today. First Fridays abound with people who come to see not only the arts that are there, but also the performances that take place in the streets. It is this vibrant arts scene inspired by the initiation of Jim Leedy and others that has encouraged our graduates to stay in this area. They start businesses, they occupy studios, they exhibit in local galleries, they become entrepreneurs and work in a variety of different capacities, thus contributing to the economic engine in the KC community. Kansas City Art Institute students contribute greatly to the 4.7% share of our businesses in Kansas City region that are devoted to the arts. KCI's influence is very apparent throughout Kansas City, whether it is in many of the galleries that feature the works of faculty, students, and alumni, in the design studios and multimedia industries that shape the commerce and the cultural face of the future, in classrooms where our children learn, in nonprofit organizations that help enhance the quality of life for all residents of the community, and in a myriad of other jobs that support the business and government sector. But it is not just our history. It is what the visual arts and KCI can contribute to the notion of a downtown arts campus that is at issue today. So, a downtown arts campus, what a wonderful idea, but what does that mean? It would mean a lot of things. The creation of opportunities for connectedness and revitalization, enhancement of arts education, opportunity for business growth and development, possibilities for igniting creative synergies, job development, economic growth. It could provide additional opportunities for local artists and be an attraction for others to come to the heart of America. I know that there is probably some confusion in people's minds as to why KCAI would want to be a part of the downtown campus, based on the traditional definition of the word campus. Traditionally, a campus is known as the land on which a college or university and related institutional buildings are situated. The definition currently describes a collection of buildings that belong to a given institution, either academic or non-academic. With the definition of campus is often restricted to the notion of an institution. I would like to challenge you to think more broadly and adapt, in this instance, a Euro-Mediterranean definition. Yes, I was in Aix-en-Provence, which is in the Mediterranean, where a campus is composed of a community of people from multiple disciplines, the purpose of which is to create connectivity. Within this definition, campuses are a unique cross-cultural, interdisciplinary exchange experience. They bridge numerous disciplines: architecture, art history, local development, environment, tourism, geography, communication, graphics, photography, social science, hydraulics, natural hazards, any of them that you could possibly think of. If I stretch this definition somewhat and rethink what a campus could be for the arts, it would not be composed of just structures from one institution, as defined by our traditional sense. It would be composed of interactions of several institutions where there are cross-disciplinary exchanges and experiences. This type of campus encourages relationship building and opportunities for synergies to take place among and between the arts, where the total will be greater than the sum of its parts, and like the Euro-Mediterranean campus, eventually include related areas of technology and tourism. An example of such a campus can be found in Durham, North Carolina, where one of Durham's last historic mills was creatively reused. The space is called Golden Belt, and it is a 7-acre campus spread out over 6 buildings. It unites an uncommonly thought of blend of people, arts, entertainment, and commerce, and includes artist studios, live work loft apartments, offices, restaurants, retail, live music, events, and more. This particular example, it takes over, as I mentioned before, about 6 blocks and caters to the visual arts, as well as music, multimedia, theatrical education, performance, and exhibitions. Another example of such a campus is in Cleveland, Ohio, where there are 3 institutions that formed partnerships: Cleveland State University, Case Western Reserve University's MFA Acting Graduate Theater Program, and Playhouse Square. They call this the Power of 3, mainly focused on theater, but it also provides studio space, a theater that was renovated, as well as studio space for visual artists. Students get a chance to work alongside professionals, particularly in the theater area. It's interesting, what's interesting about this partnership is that it contains 2 institutions of higher education, plus an arts organization. A third example is from Paris, France, where an old refrigerator warehouse was turned into studios for artists. This building houses, as you can see from the list, quite a number of different artists: architects, ceramic artists, designers, musicians, painters, theater people, editors, writers, etc. The list is quite long. There are also webmasters, sculptors, stylists, if you go down the list of people who occupy the spaces. They have the opportunity to congregate in a small restaurant, which is on the main floor, but they also have the opportunity to visit each other's studios, and I had the joy of being able to visit all the studios while I was there this summer. I'm not proposing that we replicate what Cleveland, Durham, or Paris have done, but I do ask that we consider the possibility of partnerships that will enrich and provide what I describe as spaces where artists of all sorts can come together to create a synergy of creativity and dialogue. What if we could be the power of 3 or 4 or more? Which organizations, educational institutions, businesses could provide the mix that would create opportunities and collaborations and innovations that we hadn't imagined before? Imagine how technology, with the Google Fiber initiative, will allow what is created in this hotspot to extend to a broader reach. For example, how can technology and the arts provide a strong link between our current downtown culture and arts corridor that, in my mind, includes 18th and Vine District, Crossroads Arts District, and West Bottoms? It's a straight line right across. Includes the Kaufman Art Center, includes the spaces where the conservatory may reside. Why would this be important to KCAI to be a part of a downtown arts campus using the Euro-Mediterranean definition? Because given our history, we already are involved, and we should continue to be involved. While the Crossroads Arts District developed rather organically, the notion of the arts campus coming out of a collaborative urban planning process could allow for a more strategic look at relationships that exist between the folds aimed at nurturing and growing and attracting talent. KCAI is poised to contribute to this critical mass of students, entrepreneurs, and artists needed to deliver the strongest possible economic and educational impact. Thank you.
Well, let me say I'm really delighted to have an opportunity to come and meet with you at the onset of the work that my firm, the Cultural Planning Group, is going to be doing with the Mayor's Task Force on the Arts. And, you know, I had an opportunity with Mike this morning to kind of tour the Crossroads District and downtown. And, you know, an initial outsider's perception is there's something afoot in Kansas City. Something important is happening in this community. And so we're very pleased to be a part of working with you, the community, to help define what the cultural future of the community would be. You know, an outside consultant is both that and an advantage and a disadvantage in this sort of thing. The disadvantage is that we're always the least expert person in the room on what really matters, and that is the values and aspirations of this community. We can bring with you stories of what's happened in other communities, but we're deeply committed to the idea that every community has the right to cultural self-determination. And Kansas City seems to us to be on the road. So I want to speak on more general terms today. This idea of relocating the conservatory into downtown is a big idea, but it's part of a bigger idea, and that is, how do you transform your downtown into the rich, vibrant place that it can be, that serves all of the citizens of the community. So I want to talk about some essential elements or characteristics that I think are important when you're creating this kind of creative and vibrant downtown. And Mike, you have to keep a watch on the time for me a little bit, because I get going and 10 minutes flies by. So I'm going to talk about these 7 elements in some detail and try and bring in some examples from other parts of the country. I threw in this image of the Eiffel Tower because I was reading a report that was issued by an international organization of economists that were trying to determine the value of cultural icons. And they determined that the value of the Eiffel Tower, which cost in current dollars $43 million to build, was about $3.5 million when they built it, that the value to the city of Paris and the country of France is $535 billion. And that's from tourism, that's from a variety of things, jobs that are created and so on. So it's an example of how important these cultural icons can be. One of the things when I talk about vision, I want to talk about a tale of 2 cities in a certain way. Seattle is my hometown, and so I know it intimately. And you know, I sense that both countries have had this goal of a vibrant city with a robust art scene. And what I've observed, and one of the disadvantages of being a consultant is that you have just enough information that you hang yourself on many occasions. So forgive me for my lack of knowledge. As a consultant, our job is to become a native son, and we're going to do that soon, but this is my first visit to Kansas City. But you have 2 extraordinary cities with this vision. And what I would say is that Seattle has become one of the most vibrant arts towns in America. It's extraordinary, the transformation that has taken place in the last 25 to 30 years. And I sense that in many ways, Kansas City is sort of in the position that Seattle was about 20 years ago, when the arts began to, in some ways, take over the town. But it wasn't always so in Seattle. You know, this is an image of Skid Road. You know, the term Skid Row began with the Skid Road, which was this timber road that they skidded the lumber down. And it landed at the end of Yesler Street in Pioneer Square. And Skid Road was a good description of that part of the city up until the 60s and 1970s. You can see this is about a 1961, rooms 75 cents per night. So it was a kind of humble beginning of the city. Pioneer Square today, of course, is this wonderful, vibrant place. And I'm reminded of the Crossroads District and the way that it's developing. It's very analogous to what Pioneer Square became. and again, it was an inauspicious beginning. In the 1940s, Sir Thomas Beecham was the conductor of the Seattle Symphony, and he got so disgusted that he abruptly resigned, left town, and said that he couldn't stand any longer to be in the cultural dustbin of North America. Returned to England. And of course, things were very grim at times in Seattle, and one person only a little bit kiddingly put up this sign on Interstate 5, leaving town, will the last person leaving Seattle please turn out the lights. So it was a grim period of time. But a decision was made by the city fathers, and a big idea was proposed, and that was that this cultural dustbin host an international World's Fair in 1962. And actually, it wasn't the first World Exhibition. First one was in 1909, which was the Yukon Pacific Alaska exposition. But this sort of cultural upstart town decided that they were going to put themselves on the world map by doing this World's Fair, which I had the pleasure of attending in 1962. It resulted in a number of important things. The first real cultural facilities in the community were built there. A performance hall, a science center, the repertory theater, outdoor performing spaces. And these became the seeds which allowed the arts in its many forms to begin to develop in the community, and laid the groundwork for the kind of institutional development. So it was that little vision of doing this audacious thing of hosting the World's Fair that really became that crystal that was thrown into a supersaturated solution, and suddenly it crystallized in a very dramatic way in the city. So that's the first thing I want to talk about, or to suggest, is that having a vision, making some decisions about the future. The second, and maybe the most important characteristic, in my opinion, is leadership. Leadership is what makes things happen in communities. And I want to talk about a couple examples of leadership. In my experience, some of the most powerful leadership emerges in any community when somebody sees something that needs to be done and they decide, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take that piece on, and I'm going to make it happen for our community. So let me tell you a story about the Seattle Public Market. How many of you have visited Seattle and the public market? Quite a few of you. It's an extraordinary place. It's the soul of the city of Seattle. In the 1960s, the city fathers, and they were all fathers back then, they weren't fathers, city mothers in leadership roles, made the horrible decision to tear down the market as a urban renewal project. And one person, a local architect, Victor Steinbrook, said it's not going to happen. And he pleaded with the city fathers to not do it, and they wouldn't listen. So he went out there and he chained himself to the bulldozers and got the TV cameras down there and the radios down there, radio stations down there. And suddenly other people started, who cared about this market, came down there and also chained themselves to the bulldozers. And the market was saved, and I'm not kidding when I say it's the soul of downtown Seattle. Let me give you one other example of kind of self-selected leadership. In 1921 in San Antonio, there was a devastating flood that flooded downtown San Antonio. And again, the city fathers decided that they had to solve the problem, and they were going to lid it over and make it part of the river as part of the storm sewer system. And two people decided that that wasn't going to happen. The person who gets the most credit is Robert Hugman, who was a 27-year-old landscape architect who designed a plan for it. But the real driving force was a woman who was the president of the local conservation society, a Mrs. Lane Taylor, who organized people around this idea that Hugman had. And they saved the Riverwalk. Again, The essence of San Antonio is the Riverwalk. And it's leadership where people chose to step forward. So often, you know, in this room, there's the leadership to make things happen in the community. And I admire the work that Mike and others are doing in assuming leadership in their community to transform it. A third element in creating this place is rich artistic products, and I was really pleased to see the artistic production that's been there, because ultimately it's about the art. All of this stuff is about the art making. And so you have to have rich cultural offerings. These are a few examples of extraordinary things that art has done for various communities. This is a project called Water Fire in Providence, Rhode Island. Providence, Rhode Island was a pretty grim place once upon a time. And this project attracts 3 million people a year for this program of these fire sculptures that are on the water. I need to roll around. Okay, so I'm going to... this is a Glow Festival, a public art festival in Santa Monica. It was a festival that started at 8 o'clock at night and ended at 8 o'clock the next morning. They expected 25,000 people. 200,000 people showed up. And it was all these young people twittering each other. Interesting lesson in that. You need a diverse and sustained support system. And I want to make an important observation here. One of the differences between Kansas City and Seattle is the role of the public sector in supporting the arts. You have had both the advantage and the disadvantage of a generous philanthropic community, and it's let the public sector off the hook. And the public sector has an important and different role in supporting the arts and building that base under it. And I have lots of examples, but I'm just going to roll along here because I'm being glowered at by Michael. You have these wonderful reusable assets that you're already beginning to claim down there. It's an important part of this. This is some new development in Ventura, California, which is Artist Live Workspace. And what I'd say about this is 65 units of Artist Live Workspace. Total cost was $57 million. The city's investment was $3 million. ArtSpace Inc. put together all of the financing, the rest of the financing. And imagine what 65 artists and their families in downtown Ventura has made for that community. A mix of uses, animation, and we heard about some of those possibilities. That a lot of things need to be happening, you know, artists on the street, places to eat. There's public art. You know, you have one of the really outstanding public art programs in the country. And that's the one area where the city has made a contribution. But this mix also needs to be a mix of generations, young people, old people, a mix of ethnicities, a mix of backgrounds and interests. And community support, you know, the participation in the planning. Planning, you've got to have a plan, and it has to grow out of the values and the belief systems and the aspirations of the people. You know, as we move into this beginning of this kind of planning process for the arts in the city, we expect to engage hundreds, if not thousands of people, citizens like you. We know as consultants that the best ideas for this community are already in the room. And our job as a consultant is to hold up a mirror to the community. And so participation in the planning, engagement in advocacy. I put this in there because I regard the Las Ramblas in Barcelona as probably the best public space in the world. If you've been there, it's an extraordinary mix of activities, and it's alive all of the time. And the arts, of course, have an extraordinary presence there. So I'm going to yield the podium to our moderator and put that up for you.
I want to thank our panelists. And again, special thanks to Crosby Kemper and the Downtown Library and Downtown Council, Art in the Loop, and the shameless plug for the Downtown Council Annual Luncheon on December 14th. This will be, I think, the first of a long series of dialogues that we as a community need to come together and talk about the future of arts in Kansas City, the sustainability, and how we take Kansas City to the next level. The Mayor's Task Force on the Arts will be delving into many of those issues, but its success is solely dependent on participation by the community. So we will be reaching out to you on future occasions to make sure that your ideas, your concepts, and the community support is there to take us to the next level. Thank you again very much. Any other announcements, Ann? We are adjourned. Thank you.